Ahaianas were extraordinary vessels of Atlantis' final age. They marked a significant leap in technological development and vanished together with Atlantis itself. What were they really like? And why could their name be translated as torpedo? Hi everyone, your audacious sparrow here, and welcome to my authorial project, where spiritual exploration meets to the reconstruction of an ancient myth. Ahaianas were flying vessels of Atlantis' last epoch. Without them, it's impossible to imagine how late Atlantis lived, how trade functioned, how resources were managed. So, what exactly were Ahaianas? They were commercial and private ships that traveled across the entire archipelago, now known as Atlantis. They were under the authority of the seventh great house, which traditionally controlled transportation, ships and trade routes. According to legend, the seventh house traded origin to Ra, the sun, one of the 12 stars being worshipped in Atlantis. It's important to remember that Atlantis was not a technological civilization like ours. Its principles of development were entirely different. They didn't invent firearms as we did, yet they conducted research connected with the Earth's core. This, in fact, led to the final catastrophe. Atlantis had no analogues to our airplanes or trains, and Ahaianas stood apart from the familiar structure of their world. Ahaianas were elongated airborne vessels. They moved slowly, yet were far faster than riding animals, and even faster than sea ships used by most Atlanteans. Here is how their appearance is described in my book Empire of Ashes. It resembled a dirigible, yet was far more elongated, a torpedo-shaped form, like a great sausage, suspended in the air, large in size, though softened by distance. These were aerial ships traveling along key routes of the archipelago. And here, let me remind you, Atlantis was a chain of volcanic islands spread across a vast region of the Atlantic Ocean. And the largest island, the island of the first comers, was slightly smaller than Great Britain. There were two types of Ahaianas, private and cargo vessels. Private Ahaianas transported people. They were the equivalent of the modern private jets or helicopters, but carried only 10 to 15 passengers. They landed on special platforms located on the uppermost levels of private estates. Cargo Ahaianas landed outside city limits. Interestingly, people could also travel aboard cargo vessels, though this was unofficial. Those of humble standing, wishing to reach places such as the apical city, could sometimes negotiate passage with a crew member for payment. Notably, similar descriptions appear in the works of other authors. Dolores wrote of such vessels. They have no wings, they are nothing like our airplanes. They look like a large cigar. The image repeats with striking precision, an elongated cigar-shaped form, without wings. Ahaianas were usually seen beyond the White City, the capital of Atlantis. Cargo vessels, they're too large for narrow central streets, though they could occasionally be seen on the outskirts. Private Ahaianas were rare sights above the city or other the nearby ocean, for only a few possessed them. Their landing platforms they built atop private residences. Along the coastline, special water platforms existed, especially within the White City, attached to the breakwaters or in the harbors. Private Ahaianas mostly belonged to the head of the great families or their close relatives or retainers. There were 12 great families, a clan-based structure of society. Yet the most fascinating aspect is not Akhaiana's appearance, but their name. What did the word Akhaiana mean? And why could it be translated as torpedo? Before we begin, I should mention that I reconstructed the Atlantean language using ancient Afroasiatic linguistic roots, combined with information received in altered states of consciousness. This helps me recreate forms, names, and meanings, because language is not merely a tool of communication. It holds the way a people thinks, how they sense space, time, and being itself. Language is one of the pillars of civilization. Sometimes it can tell us more about Atlantis than anything else. So, Ahaianas. The name Akhaiana literally meant a ship fixed in position created for movement. They resembled our dirigibles, so it's not surprised that the word contains Aha, meaning standing in the fixed position. This implied a state of stillness, parallel to the ground in the case of Ahaianas, or perpendicular in the case of Stella. Aha also meant a fixed social position, standing in a defined role before people or ruler. It was also related to the word ahau, ship, creating subconsciousness associations with water vessels. Thus, Akhaiana could be understood as a ship that remains fixed in posture, always parallel to the earth. Ia meant to rise, and Na indicated travel or direction. So the full meaning becomes a ship fixed in position, made for movement. Interestingly, our word torpedo comes from the Latin torpere, to be numb, frozen, motionless, or torpedo, numbness, immobility, though its modern meaning comes from the electric rays shock. The core idea of stillness or frozen motion appears in both words. Thus, torpedo is the closest modern equivalent to Akhaiana in meaning. The main routes ran across the archipelago, though some flights reached controlled territories beyond it. For instance, to the Black Land, Egypt. Private Ahaianas belonging to the high nobility or the house heirs flew there more often. It was on such a vessel that the father of Osiris, Meretasser, traveled. As I mentioned, cargo Ahaianas traveled the entire archipelago. One frequent route led to the epical city, the ancient capital of the Golden Age. By the Atlantis' final epoch, when Ahaianas existed, epical city has become an elite mountain resort with thermal springs and a pilgrimage site with ancient temples. Another route led to the distant island of Arches, the westernmost point of the archipelago at the time of Empire of Ashes. The shape of Atlantis changed through its history. In the beginning it was a large bridge. Later, part sank beneath the sea. On Arches, an important mineral was mined, using in medicine and for interior illumination of homes. And of course there were other routes as well, equally fascinating. And finally, I will share one memory of Ahaianas, passed to me by my friend, who is incidentally one of the main characters of my book The Black Kingdom. Pink tiles, soft, delicate in color. The entire platform is paved with them. This is the uppermost level of the building. The White City lies on the high hills. Its houses are multi-storied. The wealthier the family, the taller the structure. Large estates contain entire squares of buildings. No one lives on the top floors. Ceilings here are low. Here is a private waiting hall, a small airport, a landing platform for Ahaianas. A rugged slope adjoins the platform. Beyond it, sunburn vegetation. A steep drop that the tiles end. A small 12-seat Akhaianas glides onto a platform. Through the air, without touching the ground, it moves as if sliding across the water. Along both sides of its body, straight elongated footrails like inflated pontoons. A woman steps out holding a child in her arms. They cross the platform among other passengers and enter the upper floor, connecting the landing side to the house. Low ceilings, straight, terrace-like walls, and deeper inside the space opens. Soft white coats and quiet.